They're not watching you because they admire you. They're watching you because they're measuring you, calculating, scanning for weakness. Manipulators don't hunt for confidence, they hunt for hesitation. They're not looking for people who stand firm, but people who doubt themselves. The ones who seek approval, who explain too much, who leave their boundaries open like unlocked doors. The moment they see a flicker of guilt in your eyes, or a slight tremble in your voice, they move in. This world doesn't reward the nicest player. It rewards the smartest one. It's not a fair fight, it's a psychological chess match wrapped in compliments, polite smiles, and pretend concern. And while you were taught to be honest, warm, and generous, they were learning how to use that against you. Your honesty becomes leverage. Your warmth, a way in. Your openness, a map they trace with surgical precision. Niccolo Machiavelli once said, "The man who strives to be good all the time will come to ruin among the great number who are not good." And that's the hard truth no one likes to admit. If you want to thrive, not just survive, you need to learn the game. Because if you don't learn how the world really works, someone else will use that knowledge against you. This video isn't about philosophy, it's about survival strategy. A manual, not a sermon. You're about to learn how to make manipulators uncomfortable in their own skin. How to stop giving them the playbook to your emotions. How to reclaim the upper hand without ever raising your voice. From now on, you're not reacting, you're calculating. You're not explaining, you're observing. Because real power never justifies itself. It just is. Let's start with a simple but devastating tactic, the mirror defense. Manipulators don't want to be seen, they want to see you. They want to be the one analyzing, not the one being analyzed. Their power lies in asymmetry. They act, you respond. They poke, you flinch. The second you stop playing your role and start reflecting their behavior back to them, the illusion cracks. If they fish for answers with vague questions, you respond with silence. If they ask, "So what are you thinking?" you ask, "What made you ask that?" If they fake empathy to pull you in, you match it with calm politeness, but never invite deeper connection. You're holding up a mirror, not joining their game. And the funny thing is, most manipulators can't stand looking at themselves. Not for long. In real life, this looks like maintaining calm eye contact when someone tries to provoke you. Offering a soft but detached "interesting." Why do you ask when someone pushes a little too hard? Mirroring their tone and posture, not with mimicry, but with quiet detachment. You're not fighting them, you're showing them their own mask. And eventually they'll want to look away. Because here's the secret: manipulation depends on imbalance. It needs you to react. When you mirror instead of engage, the manipulator loses their footing. They start second-guessing. Their rhythm breaks. And in that gap, you gain control. Which brings us to the next tactic, the emotion vacuum. Manipulators thrive not on what they say, but on how you respond. The little jabs, the fake praise, the sideways compliments that sting if you think about them for too long. All of it is bait. And the moment you bite, the trap snaps shut. If you get defensive, they've won. If you over-explain, they've won. If you laugh just to smooth things over, they've still won. Because now they're inside your emotional walls. Here's the counter: become unreadable. Not cold, but composed. Not angry, but still. Silence, when used correctly, is more terrifying than any comeback. When they say something passive-aggressive and you give them nothing, that silence is deafening. It makes them question themselves. And more importantly, it forces them to sit in the discomfort of their own failed manipulation. Let's say someone makes a joke at your expense. Everyone's laughing. You don't laugh. You don't react. You let the moment pass, and suddenly all the attention is on them. The moment starts to feel off, awkward. The joke now hangs in the air like a mistake. This doesn't mean you become numb. You feel everything, just not in public, not with them. Emotion is data, and you don't give data to someone who's trying to decode you. Now let's talk timing, because manipulators love urgency. They create pressure not because the situation demands it, but because panic makes you pliable. They want you to decide quickly. Say yes fast. Sign without reading. Commit before you fully understand. Why? Because speed kills judgment. This is where you introduce your new best friend: strategic delay. A pause, a breath, a refusal to be rushed. Let's say someone sends you a message, "I need an answer right now." Most people respond immediately out of politeness or fear, but not you. You wait. Maybe an hour, maybe a day. That gap, that silence becomes your battlefield. In that space, their power dissolves. They get nervous, they second-guess themselves. They might follow up with another message, this time softer or more aggressive. Either way, they've revealed their hand, and you haven't moved a muscle. This tactic works in person too. Someone asks you a direct question, don't answer immediately. Hold eye contact, breathe, tilt your head slightly. Let the moment stretch just a little longer than expected. That pause becomes unsettling. Suddenly, they're the ones scrambling to fill the silence. You've flipped the dynamic. They're reacting now, not you. Machiavelli didn't believe in rushing to defend yourself. He believed in waiting until your silence made others show their cards first. He understood this control, the timing, and you control the frame. Delay isn't avoidance. It's command. And in this game, the one who speaks last often speaks loudest. Now let's turn the tables even further with a tactic that most people never see coming: reward reversal. You see, manipulators don't just use guilt and pressure, they use praise, compliments, admiration. They butter you up to lower your guard. "You're the only one I trust with this. No one does it like you." Sounds flattering, right? But it's not a gift, it's bait. And once you take it, they start pulling the strings. Here's the twist: you don't reject the compliment. You don't argue with it, you ignore it. Because validation in this context is a tool, a lever. And when you stop needing it from others, especially from those trying to control you, you become untouchable. Imagine this: a coworker flatters you in front of the team, clearly trying to hook your ego. Most people would smile, say thank you, maybe return the praise. But you nod slightly and shift the conversation to something else. You just reverse the reward. You showed them their compliment had no effect, that you're already centered. You don't need them to reflect your value back at you. You already own it. Now let's talk about guilt. This one runs deeper, more subtle. After everything I've done for you, you really can't help me just this once. This isn't about helping. It's about control. They want you to feel like saying no makes you a bad person. But here's the counter: you don't argue. You don't explain. You calmly say, "Not this time," and you move on. No defense, no justification. Why? Because when you defend against guilt, you accept the premise that you're guilty. You play into their frame. Instead, you step outside of it completely. This tactic, reward reversal, is lethal because it pulls the rug out from under their entire system. Manipulators are addicted to response. They crave your emotional cues. When you deny them praise, deny them outrage, deny them compliance, they spiral. You take back the frame. You stop dancing to their tune, and they don't know what to do without a partner. Let's look at a real-world case. You're in a meeting and someone takes credit for your idea. They expect you to fight back, to get flustered, maybe even plead for recognition. But you don't. Instead, you shift the spotlight. You highlight someone else's contribution, someone genuine, someone overlooked. That single move cuts deeper than any confrontation ever could. You just took control of the room without lifting a finger. That's what reward reversal does. It makes you the frame, the source of attention, the source of validation. And once people notice that you decide when and how to give it, everything changes. You're not begging to be seen. You become the one people want to be seen by. Now let's move to a more advanced layer of defense: ambiguity armor. See, clarity is useful in honest relationships, but with manipulators, clarity makes you vulnerable. It gives them the coordinates they need to manipulate you. Every direct answer, every emotional overshare, it becomes another piece in their strategy. That's why ambiguity is so powerful. It's not confusion, it's protection. Think about how manipulators work. They ask questions that seem innocent. What are you thinking? What's your next move? Where do you stand on this? What they really want is intel, information, something they can use. But when you answer with "still figuring it out" or "depends how it unfolds," you throw fog into their calculations. They don't know where you stand, so they can't push you over. They can't target what they can't locate. Another example: someone asks why you didn't respond to a message. Most people scramble to explain. You don't. You just say, "I've been processing." That's it. No details, no excuses. You're not rude, you're just unreadable. And in psychological warfare, unreadable is undefeated. Let's add a physical layer to this strategy. Your body language. Most people don't realize how much they reveal with smiles, nods, and posture. Manipulators study these cues. If you smile too often, they think you're eager to please. If you lean in too much, they think they've hooked you. So instead, you give them stillness, neutral expression, subtle nods. Nothing more. Let them wonder, did you approve? Were you impressed? Did they annoy you? You don't give them the answer. You become the question. Here's the beauty of ambiguity. It makes people reveal themselves. When you speak less, others speak more. When you don't explain, they start guessing. And in their guessing, they expose what they fear, what they want, and how far they're willing to go to get it. In a relationship, this looks like holding parts of your world private. Not secret, just sacred. You're not labeling everything. You're not broadcasting your thoughts. One moment you're warm, the next you're quiet. And that unpredictability keeps people on their toes. It creates value, because what people can't fully understand, they won't take for granted. In negotiations, it's a game changer. The one who speaks last has the edge. The one who keeps their cards close forces the other side to reveal theirs first. You're not just playing the game, you're controlling the tempo. Let's zoom out. Ambiguity isn't passive, it's strategic. Machiavelli said a ruler must be both lion and fox, strong and cunning. Force is what you do. Cunning is what you hide. When you master ambiguity, you're not avoiding. You're controlling. You're not cold. You're selective. You're not indecisive. You're just not letting everyone read your hand. And in a world addicted to loudness, mystery is magnetic. The next time someone demands answers, try this pause. Breathe. Say less. Watch what they do. Watch what they reveal when you give them silence. Because silence is never empty. It's data. And now you're not supplying data anymore. You're gathering it. Here's where it gets real. One of the most devastating tactics in your new arsenal is something I call the exit threat. This isn't about ghosting. This isn't about storming out, slamming doors, or posting vague quotes online. This is about something much colder, much more calculated. It's about making your absence a weapon. See, most manipulators operate on one assumption: that you won't leave. That no matter how they twist your words, overstep your boundaries, or suck you into their emotional games, you'll stay. You'll fight to fix things. You'll cling to the connection. That's what gives them power, not strength, but your fear of losing them. So, when you stop fearing the loss, when you stop needing the approval, when you let go of the need to be understood, that's when the exit threat kicks in. And it shakes them to the core. You don't even have to say it. You just have to embody it. You walk into a room with quiet calm, not because you're indifferent, but because you know you can walk away at any time and you'll be fine. Better than fine, free. This is where most people fail. They think boundaries are built on words, on declarations, on fights, on ultimatums. They're not. Boundaries are built on action. And nothing screams power louder than silence followed by distance. Take a toxic relationship. You've said no a dozen times. You've tried to express your needs. And every time the manipulator turns it around on you, "So you don't care about me, I guess I'm not a priority." It's classic guilt masking control. But then one day you don't argue. You don't cry. You don't explain. You just say okay and disappear for a few days. No texts, no updates, just stillness. That absence, that's power. Not because you're trying to punish them, but because for the first time you've removed the supply, and manipulators are addicts for control. When the supply is gone, their world starts spinning. Same thing in the workplace. You've got a coworker who takes credit for your ideas, throws extra work on you, expects you to always be available. You could complain, you could confront, but instead you go silent. You document, you deliver results, you start building quiet alliances. And then out of nowhere, you transfer departments or resign and land a better role. No warning, no drama, just a clean exit with all your value intact. That's what the exit threat is. It's the psychological equivalent of holding the oxygen valve. You don't have to cut it off. You just have to let them know without ever saying it that you could, at any moment. And they'll feel it in their chest like a tightening string. But here's the warning. This tactic only works if it's real. You have to actually be okay with walking. You have to detach from needing people to validate you, apologize to you, understand you. You have to let go of the hope that maybe they'll change if you say it the right way. You project the exit threat through three main behaviors. First, time control. Don't always be available. Don't rush to respond. Don't explain where you've been. Let your absence carry weight. Let them wonder. Second, emotional discipline. When someone tries to bait you, guilt you, or disrespect you, don't react. Don't flinch. Don't explain. Just go still. Look at them with calm, detached energy. Let them know without words that their behavior has no hold on you anymore. Third, independence. This is the backbone of it all. If someone controls your finances, your housing, your social circle, they think they control you. You need to build options quietly, steadily, privately. Your power lies in the fact that you don't need to stay, that you stay because you choose to. Machiavelli said, "It is much safer to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." And while we're not talking about fear in the sense of tyranny, we are talking about respect. The kind of respect that comes from someone knowing you are whole with or without them. You are not chained by connection. You are free by choice. And here's the kicker. The more silent your exit threat is, the louder it echoes. You don't need to threaten people. You don't need to make a scene. You just pull your energy back. You let your distance speak. And that stillness, it reveals everything. Some people will double down on control. Others will panic and beg. But the real ones, the ones worth keeping, will respect you more. Because they'll see you not as someone they own, but someone they could lose. Now let's take it up a level. The final piece of psychological warfare, the one most people never master, is the master-level strategy playing dumb. This is the art of strategic invisibility, of seeing everything and saying nothing. Manipulators expect resistance. They expect you to argue, push back, reveal yourself. So when you don't, when you act like you didn't even notice, you break the script. They toss out a passive-aggressive jab. You half smile and change the subject. They ask a question designed to corner you. You answer vaguely or shrug with disinterest. Behind the scenes, you're watching, tracking, building your case. But on the surface, you're water. No friction, no resistance. Why does this work? Because manipulators rely on reaction. If they don't get a signal from you, any signal, they get confused. And confused people make mistakes. This isn't about being naive. It's about using patience like a scalpel. You let them think they're winning, let them overplay their hand, and then one day you pull the rug out from under them with documentation, with a calm confrontation, or simply with a quiet exit. You see, it's not about winning the little battles. It's about letting them believe they've won the war until you reveal that you were never even fighting it. This is psychological mastery. You stop trying to be right. You stop trying to be liked. You stop trying to be understood. You stop feeding the game entirely. And in that silence, in that disinterest, you become unreadable, untouchable, uncontrollable. That's real power. Let's take a step back. You've been taught your whole life to engage, to clarify, to defend yourself. That when someone accuses you or misunderstands you, you owe them an explanation. But let's make one thing clear, you don't owe anyone clarity if their intent is to control you. Manipulators don't misunderstand by accident. They provoke confusion on purpose. They use false assumptions as bait. So you think you're better than me? Why are you being so distant? I guess you don't care anymore. These aren't questions. They're traps disguised as vulnerability. Now, if you respond emotionally, if you try to reassure them, correct them, or prove your loyalty, you've already stepped into the web. You've given them the coordinates they need to move you. But what happens when you don't play? What happens when you let the misunderstanding sit? When you meet their accusations with stillness or with a slow, intentional, believe what you want? The game breaks. Here's the reality: most manipulators rely on your instinct to overcorrect. They rely on your discomfort with silence. But the moment you allow their discomfort to remain theirs, you reclaim your peace. This is why strategic ambiguity is such a devastating move. When you stop filling in the gaps for people, when you stop over-explaining, you force them to sit with their own projections. You force them to listen to the echo chamber of their own assumptions. And that is often louder than anything you could say. Let's take this into a real-world situation. Say you're in a personal relationship where the other person keeps fishing for reassurance. Do you still love me? Are you going to leave me? If they genuinely wanted connection, that's a conversation. But if they're asking these questions weekly while ignoring your efforts and guilting you when you set boundaries, it's control. So instead of repeating the same script, "Of course I love you," "No, I'm not leaving you," pause. You let the silence do the heavy lifting. Maybe you say, "That's not a question I'm going to answer today," or maybe you just look at them calm and unbothered and say nothing at all. Watch what happens. The manipulator will escalate. They'll throw out more bait, more panic, more guilt, but you stay grounded. You hold the line, and suddenly their usual tools stop working. They're grasping at a version of you that no longer exists. The same applies to workplace scenarios. Suppose a manager or coworker constantly tries to back you into corners. Why didn't you respond to my email immediately? Are you avoiding this project? They want you to panic, to defend, to explain. But you respond with poise. "I handle tasks based on priority." Or even better, "I'm managing my workflow, thanks for checking in." You give them nothing emotional, nothing reactive, just logic. Neutral tone, short sentences. Eventually, they realize they can't control you with urgency, or ego, or shame. And that realization chips away at their power every single time. But let's talk about something deeper. Something most people avoid because it's uncomfortable. People don't just fear being misunderstood, they fear being seen as the villain. And manipulators use that fear mercilessly. They flip the script and make you the problem. They provoke you until you finally react and then say, "See, you're the one being difficult." And if you're still caught in the validation loop, that will haunt you. You'll want to prove you're good. You'll want to fix the narrative. And boom, they win. But when you accept that someone's version of you is none of your business, that's liberation. Let them think what they want. Let them twist the story. Let them talk. Because you've moved past needing a clean reputation in every room. You've chosen peace over performance. This is what Machiavelli meant when he warned that those who cling too tightly to their virtue often become easy targets. Because in the pursuit of appearing good, you become predictable. You can be guilted, shamed, manipulated. But when you release the need to be seen as good and focus instead on being free, you become immune. Here's where your power becomes generative. When you embody these principles, people notice. Your calm becomes contagious. Your boundaries start to reshape dynamics, not just with manipulators, but with everyone. Your silence teaches others to speak more carefully. Your presence makes people straighten up, not out of fear, but out of respect. Because now you walk differently. You carry yourself like someone who doesn't need to be understood. Like someone who knows that their value is not up for negotiation. You're not hostile. You're not guarded. You're just unavailable for nonsense. And that's where the final transformation happens. You stop trying to win people. You let people reveal who they are. You give them space to show their hand. You don't jump in to rescue or fix or clarify. You sit back and you watch. Because you know those who truly respect you won't need constant explanations. They won't punish your silence. They won't poke and prod and try to decode you like a puzzle. They'll give you room to breathe. So here's your new framework. When someone tries to bait you, you go still. When someone accuses you, you don't defend. When someone rushes you, you slow down. When someone flatters you, you nod and move on. When someone guilts you, you say no and leave it at that. This is not about becoming cold. It's about becoming clear. You're protecting your nervous system, your energy, your sanity. Because manipulators don't just waste your time, they waste your life force. And once you stop supplying that, they fade. So the next time someone tries to pull you into a spiral, whether it's with a fake compliment, a guilt trip, or a question designed to box you in, remember you're not in the business of being decoded anymore. You are not a map. You are not an open book. You are no longer readable. You are the question mark at the end of their sentence. And the moment they realize they can't figure you out is the moment they lose control. You've come a long way. At this point, you're no longer reacting. You're no longer being pulled into games you didn't sign up to play. You've shifted from target to strategist. And now there's one final truth to absorb. Power doesn't chase, it chooses. Manipulators survive on emotional supply. The fuel they need isn't just your attention. It's your confusion, your guilt, your eagerness to prove something. And the moment you stop giving that, you become invisible to them. Not because you're hiding, but because they no longer know how to reach you. It's the most terrifying thing you can do to someone who thrives on control. Be unaffected. Let's break this down into the most potent tactic of all, the one that holds every other one together. The death of the emotional supplier. Most people have been trained since childhood to explain, to be nice, to keep others comfortable. But manipulators exploit that wiring. They press and you open up. They poke and you flinch. They pull and you lean in. But now you've reversed the polarity. They press and you hold. They poke and you don't even blink. They pull and you let them fall forward into empty space. You are no longer their emotional mirror. You're a wall they can't scale. Think of it this way: manipulators run emotional economies. They trade in responses. They bait you with flattery or guilt, then profit off your reaction. But the moment you close that market, shut down the supply chain, they go bankrupt. Fast. Imagine a past version of yourself, someone who used to over-apologize, over-explain, always rush to make things smooth again. Now imagine that version standing across from you today. And you're calm, silent, still. You don't plead. You don't justify. You don't even lean in. That old version would panic in your silence. They'd reach for approval. But you've killed that need. And in its place, you've built authority. Because real power isn't about being feared or praised. It's about not needing either. When your value isn't up for auction, you change the room simply by being in it. Let's ground this in something real. You walk into a meeting. Everyone's talking fast, trying to show off, trying to claim credit. You don't rush to join in. You speak once clearly, directly, and then go quiet again. Your words land heavier because they're rare. Everyone else is noise. You are signal. Or in a personal setting, someone accuses you of being distant. They say you've changed. You don't rush to deny it. You simply say, maybe I have. And that's it. You don't fill the silence. You don't beg to be understood. And that calm, unshakable detachment forces them to sit with something they never expected. You've grown beyond their reach. Now let's revisit one more tactic in this upgraded form: reward reversal revisited. Before, you learned how to stop giving praise to those who weaponized it. But now you take it a step further. You become the only source of emotional reward in the room. People begin to notice that when you nod, it matters. When you smile, it lands. When you show appreciation, it's real, not transactional. And so they chase it. Not because you're manipulative, but because you've mastered restraint. The less you give, the more it means. And when manipulators come sniffing around again, trying to bait you into old patterns, they find nothing to grab onto. Because you're no longer flattered by flattery. You're no longer shaken by guilt. You're not even interested in being seen as right. You've replaced the need to be liked with the habit of being respected. This shift isn't about arrogance, it's about alignment. When you stop over-explaining yourself, when you stop performing for people's approval, you gain back something far more valuable: your own time, your own peace, your own self. And that leads us to the final image: the ghost in the machine. A manipulator, no matter how clever, no matter how rehearsed, can't control a ghost. Someone who's present, but untouchable. Someone who listens, but doesn't reveal. Someone who sees everything, absorbs everything, and then quietly chooses whether to stay or disappear. You've become that ghost, not because you're cold, but because you've burned the blueprint they used to navigate you. They can't find the guilt hook. They can't find the need for praise. They can't find the button that makes you dance. You're no longer predictable. You're no longer programmable. You've walked out of their system. Now, when someone tries to manipulate you, they're not facing the old version of you who flinched and fawned. They're facing someone who doesn't need to play anymore. You don't need to expose them. You don't need to warn them. You just let them collapse under the weight of their own tactics that don't work on you anymore. And that's the ultimate victory. Not the dramatic takedown, not the clever comeback, but the slow, quiet realization that you've built something no manipulator can touch. A self that's fully intact, fully guarded, fully yours. So if this is where you are now, if you've reached the point where your piece is no longer up for discussion, say it out loud. Or type it in the comments. Or whisper it to yourself in the mirror. I am unreadable. I am untouchable. Because when you live like that, the games stop. The players fade. And you walk through the chaos untouched, unmoved, undistracted. You are the storm they never saw coming. And now you're the one pulling the strings.